Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show on Cloudcast Media, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, a venerable organization doing great things in so many spaces for more than 60 years. We're at the Jacobs Institute for Innovation and Education here at the University of San Diego School of Leadership and Education. The Institute partners with schools, districts, and educational organizations to develop cultures of innovation and creativity. Honored to be with my co-host on this special series, Elena Gomez, Associate Director of Media Relations for USD. Are you enjoying this?
This is fun. I want to do this every day.
Yeah, well, you're such a consummate pro anyway, based on your background. Absolutely thrilled to have a longtime friend and colleague on the program. And I don't believe I've seen Emily. We were trying to figure out how long it's been, but absolutely I lit up when I saw her name was going to be on the docket. Emily Young, Executive Director of the Nonprofit Institute for the University of San Diego School of Leadership and Health Sciences. What a pleasure to see you after how many years?
I actually have lost count.
That's right, exactly. I don't think it's in double figures. It's been a while. Emily looks spectacular and ebullient as always, and always going to have some great stuff to say. And also honored to have with us is Paul Eichen, founder and board chair for Kid Spark Education. I was honored to be moderating an event, I believe in November, December. Paul, you can correct me on it, up at the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum in Escondido. It was a symposium, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Exactly, and you did a great job at that as well. So we're going to let you get started with this. Elena, I think you got a question for Paul right off the gate, do you not?
Yeah, just love to learn from both of you sort of where you work and sort of what the work is that you do at these organizations. We get some background on both of you.
Paul, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I'm now just board chair at Kid Spark Education, but it's actually an organization that was started here at USD when I was studying nonprofit leadership and management. And Laura Dietrich, who's the program director for that program and also professor of practice and associate director of the Nonprofit Institute, suggested that we were running at that time an engineering toy company called Rockenbach, and getting wonderful correspondence from parents and teachers about how these engineering toys were benefiting kids. And Laura suggested that we had to start a nonprofit. This was back in, I think, 2005 or 2006. And so that's how it started. And I was executive director for many years, but now have retired and just board chair. And we have a younger and more effective executive director. But KidSpark helps schools and after-school programs with applied STEM education from preschool through the 8th grade. And it's based on the technology that we developed for this for-profit company. But we now have programs running in all 50 states and a number of Latin American countries. And even this past year, we started a program in Tanzania. So it's a wonderful applied hands-on engineering program for preschoolers through middle schoolers that's going great guns. And it was born right here at USD.
Wow. And Emily, tell us about the Nonprofit Institute.
Yeah, so the Nonprofit Institute recently marked its 20th anniversary here in the School of Leadership and Education Sciences. The Nonprofit Institute, we partner with and champion the nonprofit community through our research, our training, and education to develop transformational leaders and organizations to change the world for the better.
One of the things, and Emily, I know you're smiling because we've been doing this for quite a while, for many, many years, but and certainly you did a wonderful job in your role at the San Diego Foundation. But what a great transition here on something that's near and dear to your heart, and that is elevating, rising, and all that business, the nonprofits in our area. And I think depending on what study you're looking at, what are there, 8,000 nonprofits in our area, 10,000? I think it depends on what the Ouija board is saying that day,
Oh,
right?
yeah. In terms of registered 501c3 organizations,
Right. Yeah.
we have now over 12,000.
Right.
If you look at staffed organizations where you have, people, professionals that are running these organizations, it's about a quarter of that. So about 3,000, 3,500 organizations.
Right, and of those, an even smaller percentage that are making any significant monies. I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just the way it is. And anybody who's been in the space of nonprofits know how hard those folks work. The results are usually spectacular on some of those. And in general, when you get asked by a nonprofit, hey, help us with X, is it mainly with board governance? Is it with finances? Is it running the organization? Is it all of the above?
That's a great question. Well, to your point about what is the nature of the nonprofit sector here in San Diego, I'd say about 90% of our organizations here have budgets of $1 million or less.
That's right.
And they run on the passion and dedication of people in these organizations that really want to make a difference. They touch every aspect of our lives in San Diego. And then the Nonprofit Institute, nonprofit organizations, we work with them in a number of ways. They come to us because they want to build a strong and effective board that helps to oversee the organization, partner with it to ensure that it's fulfilling its mission to the greatest extent possible for the greatest impact in our community. They'll come to us looking for ways to use our research team to help design and evaluate programs and make them more effective. And I know that Paul and I were talking about that before this program because we've had an ongoing partnership with KidSpark Education for that kind of impact. They also come to us because they might want to develop the leadership capacity of the people in their organization, or they want to participate with their peers in the nonprofit community in a cohort kind of program to develop their leadership skills and insights to become more conscientious and transformational in the work they do, or in their organization kind of developing more kind of management skills to better run their organization and operation so they can extend their mission further.
That's great. Elena?
Yeah, and Paul, tell us a little bit about just the importance of kids getting access to STEM at an early age. What have you seen with that, and why is that's so important? We've been talking about that all day.
Right.
And just what are you seeing?
It's a great connection to the value of design research that we continue to work closely with the Nonprofit Institute and take advantage of their skills there. Because when we first started getting this correspondence about our engineering toys and how they were benefiting kids, we wanted to make sure we created KidSpark to pursue equity in STEM education. And we wanted to make sure that the kids that had least access to products like ours got access and would benefit from it. But research that we conducted showed that the toys in their current form weren't appropriate for the kids that we wanted to serve. So we actually had to create a whole new extension to our system for younger kids and to teach them foundational fluencies. I'll give you one example. Being able to interpret symbolic language. So if you think of the kinds of instructions that come with a Lego toy or with an IKEA desk, where you're going to just look at symbols, two-dimensional symbols printed on a page, and then you have to follow those instructions and assemble something in 3 dimensions. Well, those are learned skills, and for kids that don't get those experiences at home, we have to help them with those kinds of experiences the moment that they get to school so that they develop a positive identity with doing that kind of work. And without something like symbolic language, you're never going to be able to do engineering on a computer, for example, because that's a flat screen. Everything is an illustration that's supposed to represent something in 3 dimensions, but you're seeing it in 2 dimensions. So you have to learn that skill. So it's critical that we start teaching those kinds of foundational fluencies, sequencing correspondence, symbolic language, spatial reasoning when the children are as young as possible so that they see themselves as those kinds of learners. At first, we didn't understand why our products weren't appropriate for the kids that we wanted to serve, but it's been through design research process where we create programs, we test them, and then redesign them with the help of the Nonprofit Institute that our programs become more and more and more effective and are more in demand across the country.
What do those programs look like today, or what have you found to be just what works for kids?
Well, of course, our programs are applied programs, hands-on programs. So it's a combination of our actual engineering media. We have our own proprietary construction and robotics system, and that comes in the form of kits, a lab that goes in front of, for example, 1 or 2 preschoolers or 1 or 2 kindergartners, along with curriculum and a teacher's guide for the instructor. So give an example again where the Nonprofit Institute's been so critical in our development. At first, we would build a kit that was designed for 3 or 4 students, and we didn't understand why we would place products in a school and come back 3 years later and find that they weren't in use. And one of the things that research showed is that the amount of building pieces that were in this container was just too much for the teacher to manage with the children, and we needed to provide smaller kits with smaller amounts of material for fewer children to use, for just 1 or 2 children to use at the same time. And it was that sort of very subtle sort of classroom management cue that made the program much more appropriate for younger kids and their teachers. And sometimes you just can't see what the issue might be, and it's through this design research process that you're able to fine-tune a program to where it becomes much more effective.
I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show on Cloudcast Media, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 60 years, just killing it, doing great things for our community. And, of course, they're members. We're here at the Jacobs Institute for Innovation and Education at the University of San Diego School of Leadership and Education. This institute's just doing great things, working with school districts around our county, trying to level the playing field. Honored to have our guest, Emily Young, Executive Director of the Nonprofit Institute at USD Souls, and Paul Eichen, Founder and Board Chair for Kid Spark Education. Honored to be with my co-host, Elena Gomez, Associate Director of Media Relations for USD. You know, Emily, I know you like data. You love data, as a matter of fact, but she's very, very far from being a nerd, I'll tell you that right now. But talk about some of the key findings from your latest research and how you use this research to strengthen your organizations such as KidSpark.
Yeah, so well, one of the things I wanted to mention is in our research, we were looking at, we've been doing some public opinion polling, and then we mirror that with nonprofit leader surveys. And one of the things that we found in our public opinion polling is that the issues that San Diegans care most about, they're all issues that nonprofits are on the leading edge. They're on the front lines of addressing, including inequities in education. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Because you think about nonprofits, they're, in essence, they're opportunities for social entrepreneurs, right? To design different kinds of innovations to make a difference and get at those issues that fall through the cracks or where it seems like you've got some kind of insurmountable challenge. But that's where people come together and they develop these ideas in organizations, partner with school districts, partner with government, partner in community to really make a difference. So one of our ongoing efforts to just link up this public opinion polling and then also raise public awareness. The other thing we found was that while nonprofit leaders are reporting that they're facing ever-increasing demand for services, they're not able to meet all that increased demand. And at the same time, if you ask San Diegans about the health of the nonprofit sector, their financial health, it ranks dead last in their list of priorities. And yet, we're all expecting that our nonprofit community is really going to pick up and address these, very challenging issues, such as how do we prepare our rising generations to really be literate in STEM when we know technology is part of everything in our lives? And so that's one set of key findings. Another thing that I will say is just that there's also in San Diego an unprecedented opportunity for ever greater collaboration. What we saw with the pandemic is that a lot of nonprofit organizations that were already collaborating, they realized that the only way we're really going to solve big problems is to not address them in silos, but work in increasing levels of partnership and collaboration. And I think there's a much greater appetite today in 2023 than there was pre-pandemic because, a crisis is the mother of invention, right? And we've certainly seen that, and people finding new ways to cross-connect their work.
Yeah, we can. Impact. Yeah, I want to hit on that when we come back from a break, chatting with Dr. Emily Young, Executive Director of the Nonprofit Institute at USD Souls, joined by her colleague Paul Eichen, Founder and Board Chair of Kid Spark Education. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, joined by my co-host Elena Gomez, Associate Director of Media Relations at USD, and we will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight in the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. You talk about community leaders in our region, and they've been doing that for 60 years. We're here at the Jacob Institute for Innovation and Education, housed at the School of Leadership and Education Sciences at USD, just doing great things, working with schools, districts, and educational organizations to develop cultures of innovation and creativity throughout our region. I'm joined by Elena Gomez, Associate Director of Media Relations for USD, and our guests again, Emily Young, Executive Director of the Nonprofit Institute at USD, and Paul Eichen, Founder and Board Chair for Kid Spark Education. Before I turn it over to Elena, I know she's got a whole bunch of questions she can't wait to ask. You brought up something, Emily, that was near and dear to our heart. You've been on another Spotlight show for many, many years. And the reason why we started this, if you can believe it's been 16 years, this is all about what you just talked about, was collaboration. And what we wanted to make sure when we shouted out the great work that people have been doing since we've been on the air in 2007, it's all about collaboration. You work in a silo, you'll die in a silo, and that's how that works on this. Again, before I turn it over to Elena, talk about real quickly, if you can. It's not a fair question for you, Emily, because it's impossible to talk quickly about it. But the economic contributions of nonprofits in our region is huge. And most people, it's a nonprofit. They don't contribute. Are you out of your mind? They contribute a ton, do they not?
Absolutely. I'll give you a couple examples. When you think of, first of all, just our workforce, 1 in 10 jobs in San Diego is in the nonprofit sector. 9% of all of our wages in the nonprofit sector. Think about things like CBX, right? Cross-border efforts to make it easier to cross the border and get all of that commerce back and forth. When you look at how intertwined our manufacturing is and just in general our binational commerce is, that was nonprofit advocates working with government officials and working on both sides of the border that really got that CBX established. If you look at Balboa Park, All those institutions, those are nonprofits. That is a huge revenue generator for tourism in the San Diego region. Look at all of our major research institutions, research at the University of San Diego, UCSD, San Diego State, and the like. Those are all nonprofit entities that generate all sorts of innovations that contribute to our region's economy.
No, I think that's great. Elena?
Yeah, kind of tied in with that collaboration between both of your organizations. What are some recommendations you have maybe for other nonprofits to kind of make those collaborations? Because as we're kind of talking about, the more you collaborate, the greater work you can do. So what are your recommendations or your thoughts on that?
Well, where we've seen a lot of spontaneous and otherwise collaborations form is when people come together in different kinds of peer-to-peer networking events. I know we host a lot of them in the School of Leadership and Education Sciences and at the Nonprofit Institute through different kinds of trainings. We have our governance symposium. We have our State of Nonprofits and Philanthropy report release, times when we bring people together. And that's a great place for people to just make connections and find ways to collaborate when they otherwise wouldn't.
I just give an example of where collaboration is working so well for KidSpark. So it wasn't that long ago that Souls asked KidSpark if we could help them use one of our applied engineering kits in a course for online course for STEAM masters, that we could actually distribute these kits instead of a textbook so that teachers could have a hands-on applied experience. And so we worked with Dr. Bobby Hansen, and we helped to redesign a course. And then I got to teach one of the sections in that course, and we had this wonderful experience. And in the process, we at KidSpark learned about this technology that was here in the School of Education for teaching online, asynchronous, scaffolded professional development. And what we discovered was that Souls had a really superior way of doing professional development for teachers. And so now we actually recruited Dr. Bobby Hansen, and Perla's on the same committee, and a number of other folks that were adapting that technology, this online asynchronous scaffolded professional development technology for KidSpark. And so we started by helping using our engineering media to help improve a course in the School of Education. And then the technology that we learned about in the School of Education is now going to help us do professional development for teachers all over the country and all over the world. So it's just a marvelous collaboration.
What would you say to, you mentioned there's thousands of nonprofits out there. What do you say to the nonprofits that's just getting started, that is just kind of figuring out, how to run their operation? What should they do? What are recommendations? I think collaboration is big. So how do they do that? Or what are some tips you have maybe from both of your ends?
I think that one of the really wonderful things that brand new nonprofits can do is find directors that have some experience in nonprofit governance, that have experience in how nonprofits start, the sorts of issues that they encounter as they grow, and have connections into the nonprofit community for bringing resources in as the nonprofit business develops.
And I would also say that we have a number of people that come through our graduate program in nonprofit leadership and management. And it's a wonderful way to develop professionally, particularly the way the program is designed. It's very much an applied program for working professionals. The courses are at night. And also it's a place to connect with peers. And the students actually do applied projects that provide pro bono services to other organizations. And they do things like, if it's a course in nonprofit governance, they'll do projects with other nonprofits that might be developing their bylaws or updating their bylaws for their organization. Or they're trying to figure out what's the best board recruitment or development strategy to ensure that they have those trustees for their organizations and they have good governance practices that really help to ensure that the organization is doing all that it can to really fulfill its mission with the greatest impact for San Diegans.
Yeah, and that's so important to have that sustainability as well in this area. I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show on Cloudcast Media, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. We're here at the Jacobs Institute for Innovation. Education, joined by my co-host, Elena Gomez, Associate Director of Media Relations at USD, chatting with Emily Young, Executive Director of the Nonprofit Institute at USD Souls, and Paul Eichen, Founder and Board Chair for KidSpark Education. So, Paul, are you involved in something called climate change?
Very much so.
I'd love to hear about it.
Okay.
We only have 3 more hours.
Okay. Well, so I'll just cut right to the chase.
Please.
So when I have to say that Emily and I we both started our nonprofit careers at the San Diego Foundation, and Emily was there running the environment program, and my parents founded a fund there and wanted to help with the environment, and they asked my wife and I to get involved. And my wife, Susan Fleeter, being a very deliberate environmental attorney, said, only if we get an education in nonprofit. And that's what led us to USD. And at USD, you don't get a degree in nonprofit management. You get a degree in leadership in nonprofit management. And one of the tenets of leadership that is taught is that change only happens when the center of gravity of the community changes, that you have to have an awareness of what the need for change is and an acceptance before you can create real change. So what KidSpark is doing is helping children from the earliest age understand and relate to science and technology. So for example, in climate change, all of the technologies that we need to combat climate change, to have abundant, clean energy, to stop putting more carbon into the environment, they all exist. And it's all available to us, but it's the fact that the community doesn't really see it yet that keeps the change from happening. If you can help children from the earliest age relate to science and technology, they then have the critical skills to see the change that's possible, and then the change can happen. So that's our involvement in climate change.
I'm smiling on this. Linda was a broadcast journalist, so she understands how this was. A billion years ago was a journalist. And I sort of scratch my head and go, really, we have to talk about climate change in the year 2023, and there's some people that don't understand it? Are you kidding me? Can we send them to the space station Mir permanently, or whatever the case may be?
Well, but people have to think about their lives practically. And so if they think about an electric car and they can't see how they're going to charge it, or they think it's going to be very, very expensive, then they're not apt to go ahead and make the change. But if you can help them see that, you think about a gas station. Gas stations, we have to dig big holes in the ground and put tanks in the ground and then fill them up with gasoline with a truck that comes by. We've got electrical wires everywhere. We could have chargers everywhere. It's not a problem at all. And we now have cars that are actually less expensive to buy and operate than traditional internal combustion engine cars. But people don't see it yet. We have to help them see and think critically and practically about how the change is possible for them and how it's going to benefit them. And without them being able to see that, it's very difficult to create the change.
Yeah, all I need to do is see 120-degree weather, incessantly, and droughts that we're in, and all that business here. But that's another story on this. We're getting toward the end of the interview here. Great feedback. We could have continued this, Elena, for another at least 5 hours. Are you kidding me? I'll start with you on this, Paul, and then pivot over to Emily. How can our listeners support what you're doing, Paul, even though with KidSpark or with the Climate Change Initiative?
Well, certainly, I think that anybody that has young children should really be supportive of their elementary and preschools and after-school programs, and really say we need to have STEM. And there are lots of wonderful programs like KidSpark out there that can help the youngest children really relate to science and technology. We need to get that started young and to have the community support that. If they want to support KidSpark directly, we both sell programs to schools and after-school programs that can afford them, but we also, a very significant portion of what we do comes from our STEM equity grants, where we can grant programs to schools or after-school programs that can't afford them. And to support our STEM equity grant program will allow us to serve more schools and after-school programs.
That sounds good. Dr. Young, any final comments?
Yeah, I would just say if you want to learn more about the Nonprofit Institute, you can just Google the Nonprofit Institute at the University of San Diego, and it will come up. And we do have a listserv. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the rest of it. And also, we offer all kinds of different programs, and we have research that's publicly available. That's really a value that we hold near and dear here at the University of San Diego. And then finally, if you want to get involved and support the Nonprofit Institute, you can also do that on our webpage. Just click donate.
Right. And so we've chatted with you about this before. And so my business colleague, Charles Parisi, and I can literally have you on pretty much every single week, bringing in a nonprofit that has benefited from your work at the Institute. That would probably take every single day for the next 7 years. But in all seriousness, would love to have you come back on, and you too, Paul, on this aspect and talk about it more. We cannot talk enough about engaging the nonprofits in this region and the students as well. Elena, any final comments?
No, it was great. Thank you guys for being with us.
That was great content. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union here at the Jacobs Institute for Innovation. We're going to call them their new podcast studio, at least for today. They're at USD School of Leadership and Ed Sciences, and the Institute partners with schools, districts, and educational organizations to develop cultures of innovation and creativity. Thank you so much. Paul Eichen and Emily Young enjoyed the interview, and we hope you enjoyed the show as well.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.